everybody. I'm gonna try and do a quick book review while I'm on my way to pick up my wife and kids. This book is called The Gray, and it's by, I've read several books since the last book review I did, but if you watched my last video, I've had major technical difficulties and I have not been able to download anything on YouTube. I was just counting up and I've read something like 9 or 10 books since that last one. I don't know that I'm going to do reviews on all that. Some of them was terrible, some of them were pretty good, so I don't know. This is just the very last one that I had read, finished the other day. Lou Cadle, The Gray. 1, 2, and 3 of The Gray is what I read, all 3 of them. And so we'll just get into it real quick. I'm gonna try and speed this along. The plot of the book was what it was about, a doomsday type scenario. I don't think the book ever got into exactly what happened, whether it was nuclear or what exactly happened, but basically a girl found herself in a cave. She was on a caving trip, which I think was her first time caving, which I thought was odd, but that's okay. She found herself in a cave when the balloon went up. She, due to the heat, she knew something was going on outside and there was heat radiating through the entrance of the cave. She moved herself back further into the cave and spent several days in that cave until basically she was able to come out, and she realized that some major event had happened. So that's it. She takes off. Here's where the story, I'm going to say, is unique versus a lot of the other books that are out there today. It wasn't your run-of-the-mill prepper story. She had an RV, so she had some stuff with her. She was going on I don't know, is it called caving or spelunking or whatever it's called? So she had some gear with her, but it wasn't your, I've got my get home bag, I've got everything I could ever possibly need to survive in an apocalyptic scenario. It wasn't that book. It wasn't that type of book. She had some stuff, she gathered them up, and she hit the road. And so I felt like that was unique in that everybody's writing a survival book nowadays, or a prepper related book, and this was a little apart from those, I think. So I personally found that refreshing. There was times when she lost everything she had. There was times when she struggled to maintain what little gear and things that she did have. She coveted. They were important to her because she didn't have much, and so she wasn't pulling out of her pack everything she needed, a full fishing rod and kit and all the line and lures and everything you need. She had a little bit of line and a few hooks that was buried in the bottom of a pack from a fishing trip she went to, and so that small amount of that, and I don't even think she had a knife. I think maybe she found a butcher knife or something. I don't remember, but to me it was refreshing that the story, she had to struggle to along the way pick up different pieces that she needed, find different pieces as she was salvaging through things. She would find a little thing here and a little thing there that would help her. So anyway, to me that was what made the story a little more unique than the basic run-of-the-mill survival type story. The writing I thought was well done. It wasn't a literary wow type book. I think it was really simple and easy to understand, and it just I wouldn't say boring, but it was just a simple read. And well, that's all I can say about that. The characters and as you can tell, I'm not going to rate each one of these categories. I'm just going to talk about them, and then I'll rate the overall book. The character and character development I thought was pretty well. Given that it was a simple read, somehow the author was still able to, I don't know, get you into the storyline as far as the characters themselves. There was really the one main character and a fella that she befriended and became her travel partner, and eventually, you know, they fell in love and all that. But the character development, it kind of drew me in, and I'm not exactly sure how or why, but it drew me into with the exception of one major flaw that I had, and it was just my opinion. It was kind of a moral issue I had with the main character. Other than that, the development I thought was pretty well done, given that it was a pretty simply written book. The journey or the pace of the book I thought was really pretty well done. It did slow down in parts, but I guess probably because I like that type of a read, it held my interest. And although I've grown a bit burnt out on a doomsday type read, this one kept my interest. When I say it grew long, I think it towards the end it felt like it was stretching out a little bit, but I didn't really mind. It was a pretty long journey that this girl was going on, and several things happened along the way. A lot of them were pretty predictable, but still I found it interesting nonetheless. The ending, I don't know, it all kind of, it was fairly predictable, but it did wrap the story up fairly well. Overall, I can't give it a 4 because it was just a good, solid read. It wasn't a real powerful read. The character development was well enough, but not to the point where you just was on your seat for these characters. So I mean, I'm going to give it a 3-star. I would give it a 3.5 star, just and possibly a 4-star, just because it was a refreshing change from a lot of the other run-of-the-mill books in this genre. So, but I'm going to stick with a solid 3.5 star for this one. The one thing I do want to mention, and I guess maybe I don't know where this would fall, character development. One thing in the book that happened, the main character, Cora, was a pre-med student. This all went down, or at least it started in Idaho, is where it started. She was a pre-med student, and along the way, her and her friend had run across a group to where they brought her in, and she was doing the medical for this group. At first they thought she was a doctor, and she kind of allowed them to believe that. And then she came forward with the information that in fact she wasn't a doctor, she was just a pre-med student, but she was doing a pretty decent job because they had nobody else as far as the medicine issue was concerned, the medical side of things. I'm starting to ramble, but here's the part that bothered me personally. She caused a young girl to abort her child because the young person didn't want to have a baby in this setting with everything that was going on, and that goes completely against my morals, my moral compass. My biblical beliefs are that you do not murder an innocent child, period. So for me, and I know a lot of people, this isn't a popular opinion, and a lot of people it won't bother, But for me, the only reason I finished the book after that point is because it was towards the end, and I was curious to find out how it was going to end. Otherwise, I would have stopped right there and been done. Any main character of a book is not going to be doing that stuff. I'm not interested in reading it. I don't know how else to explain it. I know things happen in life, but that's not a choice that I would make or that I would condone. And so, for that reason, I wouldn't reread, or I wouldn't read anything further from in this series if it were to become a series. Other than that, the characters were likable and seemed moral. But hey, these are the times that we live in today. So, in rethinking, because I just remembered that part, and rethinking, I don't know that I could even give this book a 3-star. Across the board, it was a 3-star book, just for personal reasons. That one issue in the book, I would knock it down, but otherwise, it was a pretty pretty good read. So I'll leave it at that. Right now, I'm reading Swan Song, which is a book that I can't believe I've not read so far, but that'll probably be the next book that I review. Like I said, I've read several, and I might go back and do some little small reviews on some of those books, but nothing that really pops out that I would really recommend to anybody. So that's it. See you next time. Thanks.